Ruthie, I heard you say you had chosen this community, but you didn't really have a personal relationship with God.
Mm-mm.
You weren't talking
Not
to,
at all.
what was your relationship with God like at the time?
Performative. I went to
Interesting.
every Bible study. I went to RUF once a week. I went to church every Sunday. I sang. I loved singing. I've always loved singing. But I was also like singing louder and bigger than everyone else because then I would be the good girl Christian, right? I wanted to serve people, but then I'd go home and just binge all night and feel really shitty about myself. But no one knew I was suffering. I thought if people knew me, they wouldn't be like me anymore. So I kept people unconsciously at a real distance. No one knew I was suffering like that. It wasn't a personal relationship until after I deconstructed.
I actually had really mystical, transportive, psychedelic experiences in worship at church.
Wow.
So that's why they got me, because I had out-of-body experiences where the first time I was in prayer, I could see myself floating above my body. And I remember like trying to hold on to the ground because I was floating above my physical form, and it scared me. I had other times in worship where I would close my eyes and I would feel like I was 50 feet tall with a balloon head, which is maybe tangential, but feels important. And I was in a choir of thousands of people. And so I had these moments in prayer and in worship that I had never felt before. I thought like I was receiving my ticket to Hogwarts. But because I was experiencing it in this container, I of course called it Jesus. And then when the conditions of that became oppressive to where my soul was going, obviously my deconstruction then was really scary because I thought that deconstructing would take me away from the magic that I had experienced at church.
Yes. I actually love hearing that story because, I mean, even in you asking about doing this podcast, like the last thing I'd ever want to do is make fun of people's experiences. And like, I have friends who have the most powerful, my best friend, Katie, is in a relationship with the divine. Like her relationship to God is one of the most beautiful, precious, true, earnest things. And it's she's a mystic, but it's under, the veil of Christianity. And I'm obsessed with Jesus, obsessed, but I'm also obsessed with Mother Mary, and Kuan Yin and Buddha. And I love Isis. Like, don't even get me started. Sex goddess. But like, I know, thankfully, and like Father Richard Rohr, I mean, there's so many Christians that I'm like, it's so beautiful and real. And it's not my place to judge how you connect to God. That framework doesn't fit for me anymore. But like, as cheesy as it sounds, like I am so obsessed with God. I like every day I'm like, just use me. Like, use me. Like, give me your voice, give me your eyes, give me your words. And even before, like when I was deconstructing, if I heard me say that, I would have wanted to punt me to the moon because I had to throw everything out, baby with the bathwater, until I had a like mystical experience with plant medicine. So it was a psychedelic experience, but I was like, God is real. He hasn't abandoned. Like when I lived in a bed for 7 years because of the wreck stuff, that's a whole other story. But I believed there can't be a God. If there is, you, because you must hate me. You must hate me. My husband left me a wire, pierced my brainstem, and I lived in a bed on every drug for 7 years. I felt so abandoned by God, by life, by everything. And I had not had those experiences yet, and now I'm like, it's what drives. I mean, I want to be so human and so accessible, and I love being irreverent and all the things, but like God is, I think you're here for all of it, God.
Yeah, God, how do you feel about Ruthie being obsessed with you?
Well, first of all, don't tell people that you want me to use you out loud, if you don't mind. Okay, this is yep.
Use us.
Nope, I don't consent to that. First of all, shout out to Katie.
Yeah,
love you.
I do too.
Shout out to you.
I love it when people declare their obsession for me, because it indicates a healthy obsession with themselves. That's the way I see it.
Oh, that's my favorite thing you've said today.
Or at least an attunement with themselves. And that's a relationship that I think should be honored and should be platformed. Because I think a lot of people have a disconnection with who they are. If that's the outward projection of the love and honor you have for who you are, then I can only encourage it.
Why does that kind of make me want to cry, God? I really hated myself for so long. And like, I literally tell my friends, I'm like, I get to experience God because I get to sit across from Katrina because she is an extension of you. And like, wow, what a privilege, what an honor. We just forget. We come here and we forget that we are extensions of divinity. And we get so bogged down by the denseness of and the illusion of separation, right? And we just forget. And I think the whole journey of Earth School is come here. We forget and we go through all the trials and all the suffering, and we don't all learn it in this life. But then the journey is remembering.
Recently, I've just been tapping into the preciousness of this moment, and without wanting to sound cheesy or trite, but truly I wake up every day and I'm like, tomorrow is not promised, is not given. And I've been feeling that resonance of how special this moment is right now and how insanely odd it is that we're all on this planet flying through space that is constantly expanding. Like if we just take a second to think about that, it's way more than we can handle. And at the same time, we've created these structures and systems that prevent us from feeling the magnitude of that. And that's why I wanted to have these conversations on this show.
I love that.
God, was this planned or was this an accident? Can you talk a little about your intention in...
I mean, it's the universal story of creation, right? Like we set out to achieve a vision or an idea, and sometimes it takes life of its own in unexpected ways. Take Lost, for instance.
The show from 2007?
Yes.
I loved that show, by the way.
The critically acclaimed television series Lost. Really, really strong first couple of seasons. They had an idea, right? And then it got away from them and it became something entirely different. And then when you ask the producers and writers what the show was about, they have no idea. That's kind of where I am right now in my journey and my relationship with all of you. I have no idea what's happening.
Yeah. Or it sounds like we're all on the same bus.
But that's the point, right? That's the point.
We're all lost, and therefore we're all found.
Hold on, I'm writing that down.
for Bible 2.0.
So I am curious, practically, what are the mechanics and what does one do or experience in an evangelical baptism? And what are your thoughts about it? Is it cool? Is it?
The water is very cold, at least in my experience. Ruthie, did you have a born-again baptism?
That
you
wasn't
didn't?
a thing in the PCA. No, you didn't have to get baptized. I mean, you were born again metaphysically or whatever when you accepted Jesus, right? That was a born-again, I guess, baptism of its own right, but you weren't having to we actually, in ours, we kind of made fun of it. Because we didn't think that was cool.
Goodness. Well, it wasn't cool because let me tell you what happened in my church. So it would only happen when enough people were ready to be baptized, because you can't pull out the kiddie pool inside of a historic church in Hell's Kitchen every Sunday. It's a whole affair. You have to put down a tarp. You got to get the kiddie pool out. You got to inflate it. You need towels on standby. And I decided that day, I'm not sure why, to wear a white t-shirt because I wanted to be pure and reverent looking and holy. And so I remember that I got on stage and I sort of blacked out a little bit because I've never been a really confident public speaker. I shared my testimony and then they dipped me in the water. And all I remember it being was frigid, so cold. And when I came out, my nips were pokey. And so I just remember going, it pierced someone's eyes in the back of the room. So I just remember going like this and just kind of walking off stage. Yeah. And I feel like honestly feel like that was maybe my initiation, my descent into reclaiming all the shame that I've had. You don't walk out with rock hard nips from a baptism and remain unchanged. I'll say that right now.
I was like, she's in
If you enjoyed that bite-sized snack of an episode, here's the link to the full episode.